Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I got to tell you guys, this is one of the more important shows that we've done in a very long time. I've been doing some homework, and I got to tell you, we need to have a talk about Trump's executive order. We need to have a talk about MAHA. We need to have a talk about mRNA, DNA tech. We need to have a talk about gain of function. Those things are happening, and they're about to be a much bigger deal because we're going to enshrine them in the law. Right? No longer is this going to be a, well, maybe you can do it, maybe you can't, kind of a gray area. No, we're actually going to be enshrining it in the law. Now, I want to be real clear with this. This isn't a Trump bash session at all. There's some legitimacy behind what Trump is doing and the way he's doing it. The key on this is going to be what comes out of this process. And it takes more than a soundbite to explain this. I want you to understand that the whole gain of function, mRNA, DNA tech thing, all this stuff that's occurring, this is huge, it's complicated, and it's a global issue, right? This is a little bit similar to what's occurring in the AI world. And we need to understand that there's some nuance to it. So we're going to take our time. We're going to go through this in great detail today. But you can't miss this. You need to listen. I know we're in a soundbite world. Everybody wants me to give it to them in 30 seconds or less because that's all the attention span we have. But I want to urge you to pay attention to this in detail because trust me when I tell you, folks, the devil is in the details here. And right now we are moving into a world where the transhumanist agenda is moving. All these different things are moving. You have to understand the RNA DNA tech is foundational to all of this, and it's happening globally. Donald Trump couldn't shut this down by himself if he wanted to, but are we promoting it? Are we encouraging it? Are we making it worse? And in light of the fact that we don't actually have informed consent in this country, where does that take us? So this is a huge deal, and it really, really deserves our attention. We're going to do that. By the way, we got a new pope coming in. I said there's white smoke. No word on who it is. Hopefully this isn't a communist, leftist, Marxist nutbag. Like I'm Catholic, so I can say all that, right? So the last guy, the not my Pope Francis, that's going on. But we got that. I got a whole bunch of other news. General Flynn's now being talked about as role as national security advisor, something like that. I hope to God that happens. We desperately need him in there because some of what's happening in the White House, man, it looks like there are snakes. It looks like Trump is surrounded by snakes, just like we thought, and. We need General Flynn in there because that man is not for sale. He is a good man and been a good friend to me. I trust him as much as anybody I know that has ever gotten anyone within 100 miles of Washington. So anyways, lots to talk about. And we're lucky. My friend Mark Sherwood will be here for the first part of this to talk about some of this because the mRNA DNA tech stuff is complicated. And I want to get his perspective on this as well. Naturally, before we dig into that, I want to remind you all, please give us your support. We need your backing. Become a monthly donor. GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. $20 a month makes a world of difference to us. Takes a lot of time and effort to research this stuff, pull this stuff out. We want lawsuits. We got to be able to fund them. We got to keep building this so that we can continue to put political pressure to pass state and federal legislation. So we can block legislation. The bigger I get, the more I can do to fight bad guys. The more funding we got, the more I can do to fight bad guys. Listen, last 5 years, all I've done is fight bad guys. All I want to do. So please, your support will help me to do that. Also, please, TomRenz.com, www.tomrenz.com. Get in there, go to Tom Renz, go to shop, and check out our partners and affiliates. We got lots of good people. Kirk Elliott Precious Metals. Make sure you're checking Block Trust IRA. If you want a legitimate company to put crypto in an IRA and protect your wealth long-term, Block Trust IRA. They're one of our new sponsors. I love these guys. Great people. Of course, sat phone, you need to have emergency communications all the time. And then you scroll down a little bit. I scroll down here, and you keep going. And look at here it is, Kingdom Fuel. Dr. Mark Sherwood, one of my favorite people on the planet. Mark and Michelle do great work. Kingdom Fuel, their products, make sure you're checking with them. These are great people. So make sure you're checking. Do whatever you can. Work with Dr. Mark and Michelle. They are wonderful people. All right. I want to get right into it. And so let me bring on Mark. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well, Tom. It's good to see you. Very important subject matter at hand, no doubt.
Really a big deal today. Really a big deal. This is probably the most important shows we've had. So let me start out with this. We have upcoming what's called a VRBPAC meeting. VRBPAC is the Vaccines and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee. These guys meet all the time, and what they do is they provide recommendations on different things like the COVID-19 vaccines. The disastrous, just worst things ever, biggest failure in American history, COVID-19 vaccine. Now, we have a meeting scheduled May 22nd so that these guys can make recommendations for the 2025-2026 COVID vaccine formula, which means that there is no intention of pulling that off the market. There is no intention of stopping that. It's a great sign that they have every intent of moving forward with this, which means somewhere, somehow, someone in this administration has convinced the president that these are less than a debacle. Now, I'm just going to come right out and say that Trump's greatest failure as a president has been the mRNA vaccines and Operation Warp Speed. He was lied to, he was manipulated, and he was tricked into losing the 2020 election by people who stole it using COVID so that they could then promote these COVID vaccines. The fact that Donald Trump was absolutely duped on this and is still continuing to support it is mind-blowing to me. And, I guess nobody wants to tell him, hey, Mr. President, you got screwed on this, you got duped, and every time you keep doing this, it looks foolish. But he continues to do that, and no one will say that to him because everybody's too busy kissing his rear to tell him the truth. This is why I don't have a job with administration, by the way. I'm not really I'm interested in truth and justice, and that's just the way it is. But these were a failure, and we're now doubling down. Mark, do you have anything positive that you can say at all about the mRNA COVID vaccines? I mean, you're a doctor. You've been doing this. You've been fighting the health freedom. Can you point to one positive, successful thing that has come to them out in the thousands and thousands of patients you've seen in 5 years? One. Can you give me one example of something that's gone well with it?
Well, it's going to be an interesting answer to your question, but I do think one positive thing that came out of it. People are aware that the government doesn't know what they're doing around health, and they are aware that this was a mandate, and they're aware it was deadly. It has brought about a movement that will not be silenced. So I think from a positive standpoint, and like that is good. I like you now. This I'll say it too because I don't want you to be alone in this thought process because you're not. One thing that any leader, whether it be Donald Trump or John Doe, good leaders don't surround themselves with yes people.
No.
They surround themselves with people that'll tell them sometimes what they don't want to hear because it's right. They surround themselves with people that are smarter at certain things than they are, and that's good leadership.
Yep.
In this case, with this specific example of the COVID-19, and I'll use the same word you did, debacle, it never made sense. No. It still doesn't make sense. It makes worse sense the more we know. And there has been no indication in any aspect, any way, shape, or form, even recently, nothing but recommendations to take that shot. And I am I'm appalled by that, frankly. And I don't think that he probably has been told that by somebody, and that somebody's not going to be on this cabinet for sure.
Yep. Well, I don't think it certainly wasn't Bobby. And but there's a bunch of people around him who worked for Big Pharma, supported Big Pharma. I mean, hell, we just the other day broke that Pam Bondi worked for Pfizer right before her AG job. So, I mean, there's a lot of reason to question the people around the president. But at the end of the day, these have been a disaster. Although I will stand corrected. I guess you're right. There was one positive thing that came from the COVID vaccines, and that was their epic failure on such a grand scale has galvanized the MAHA movement into existence. So I guess congratulations on that. We found the one positive thing that came from COVID. People are now willing to fight back against vaccines and the lies that come from this medical tyranny. But we got a lot of fighting to do. We're not there yet. And, this is a big deal. So we're moving ahead with this. And the reason I started there was because I wanted everybody to understand that when I say we're moving ahead, when I say the title of the show, America's going all in on gain of function and mRNA, I'm not just making this up. I'm backing this up with some stuff, right? So we got the verb pack. We can't even shut down the most dangerous consumer product in American history, which is the COVID vaccine. We can't even stop it, get it off the childhood vaccine schedule. We can do nothing with these mRNA poisons, although we're all supposed to be real happy about food dyes, which I am happy about food dyes. But guess what? That pales in comparison to what's happening with these COVID vaccines. So we've got a major, major issue here with this. And again, no one wants to look at or talk about this. Now, let's fast forward to Trump's executive order, right? Now, let me pull up on the screen. I'm going to show you guys some stuff, right? I'll make it bigger so people can see. So this is executive order. Now, there's a couple things that I want to talk about. First of all, you'll see that you've got his purpose as policy, and the policy here is the policy of the United States to ensure that the United States federally funded research benefits American citizens without jeopardizing our nation's security, strength, or prosperity. My administration will balance, keyword, the prevention of catastrophic consequences with maintaining readiness against biological threats and driving global leadership, et cetera, et cetera. What this means, and the language of this is critical. This does not block gain of function at all. It limits it. It changes the way it can be done, but this absolutely embraces it. So what this tells me is someone told Donald Trump, listen, Mr. President, if we don't have gain of function work, we're going to be at a national security risk, and it's going to protect, how will we stop this and that and other? We got all these things on the horizon. They lied to him, right? Because these same people are also telling him that we have tech and AI sufficient to run all the simulations and all the stuff necessary to create a cancer cure in 48 hours. So they're telling him that they can do that, but they can't sim gain of function. So someone is lying to the president, because if we simulate gain of function but prohibit them from actually creating the pathogen, then that's a safe way of doing the gain of function in a lab without putting it out there. Now, is it possible that that'll be the way that this gets regulated? Yes. Does it look like it? No. And they recognize in here private gain of function, all these different things. What the president coulda, woulda, shoulda did here was just ban it. Say no gain of function, period, but you are allowed to simulate it under certain circumstances. Had he said that, that would have made clear that you can't create these deadly pathogens in a lab that then they release accidentally, if you believe that, and poison the world and created the COVID pandemic. That would have been a big difference, but they didn't go that direction. Instead, they say, we're going to balance readiness. So this is the same DARPA BARDA crew, the same national security spooks, the same liars at Big Pharma, the same people who represented pharma before coming into the administration, all telling him that they need to do this for national security, when the reality is that this could have been written in a much more effective way that would have actually protected national security on a much profound level if they had actually said no pathogens will be created. That is because we don't have to argue about the value of gain of function. And if the AI is sufficiently advanced to create a cancer cure in 48 hours, trust me, it's sufficiently advanced to run gain of function simulations. Am I missing anything here, Mark?
No. I think you need to go back to the idea of, history tells you a story, doesn't it? Right? Yeah. We know that we started this gain of function research under the auspices, and I'm using air quotes, as a security issue because other countries might do it. And so we need to be prepared for it. So we need to gain the function so we can see what that does, so we can see how it responds and see how to combat it. You can see that story goes. This is the same story now. It didn't change. It's the same story. Yep. And so what you're saying is true. And the word balance is subject to interpretation. What does that mean? Depending on whoever decides the scales. And so it's like this didn't do anything to echo and affirm your point. It did nothing. And I'm with you. If it were me looking at this, of course, you can't prevent other countries from doing whatever. They're going to do what they want. But we're talking about our country, right? We're talking about the safety of the American population, and Americans really. And
in fairness, Trump is banning some of the federal funding for other nations and gain of function, this, that, and other. I mean, he was doing some good things here.
Yeah, and I think that's great. You got to stop the other nations with what you can control, right? And we don't need to be partnering up with these other nations, of course, to do it, because then you're putting yourself on the hook. The reason we did it and got in trouble the first time is because we partnered with China. I mean, brilliant idea that one, Einstein. We shouldn't have done that in the first place.
Yeah, that was.
Having said that, I do believe with you that technology probably exists with AI, perhaps, you could simulate the new virus, perhaps put that against a known piece of data and simulate what that might happen before creating the darn thing. And so it tends to me you could probably do that. And I don't claim to be an expert to know how to do that, but I think you could do that, Tom. And I think that'd be the way to approach this.
Well, I've been active in studying and researching the AI. And listen, at the end of the day, to create a cancer vaccine, which the president believes in, we're using AI, and for it to be even in the ballpark of safe, you have to be able to simulate all the interactions within the human body. And you think of how many millions of different things that is. So if you've got AI sufficiently complicated to do and wise to do that, you can absolutely simulate, because gain of function work in a lab is all guesswork anyways. It's all just guessing what's going to happen over the next year, the next 5 years, whatever. Same thing. So you might as well let the computer simulate it without creating the pathogen. You don't have to worry about it. But you see, so there's a big hole in this argument. And again, I don't know, he's got Anthony Fauci part 2 advising him, apparently, because this is the same crap we've gotten before. Yeah, and listen, I'm sick of people telling me, oh, Trump's got a plan. Yeah, he's got a plan. Try and stop bad guys. He's doing everything he can. He's negotiating trade deals, trying to fix our economy, trying to shut the border. And as with the first term, he doesn't get the HHS stuff. He does not get it. He still doesn't realize he was duped, and that's how 2020 was stolen. He still thinks that Operation Warp Speed and mRNA was good. It wasn't. It was a debacle. And no one's got the balls to tell him. I'm so sick of these people. Listen, I look at our side, and I look at these guys who know better on Twitter telling me, oh, no, listen, this was great. We're banning gain of function. No, it wasn't great. There was nothing great about this. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to move into something that I think is probably even more important. Now, obviously, under Biden, we were all in on gain of mRNA, DNA. I mean, Biden loves transhumanism. He wanted, everybody in the planet to have their genetics modified. And Biden's a sicko, right? But we didn't stop it. We actually embraced it. And let me show you one of the key things. This is also from the same executive order, and it was something that nobody's talking about, except for me. I did an interview with Maria Z with Vigilant Fox. You can see that if you're looking at it. It's on my feed as well. But let's look at Part B. Within 90 days of the date of this order, the director of the OSTP, in coordination with the APSNA and the heads of the relevant agencies, shall revise and replace the 2024 framework for nucleic acid synthesis screening to ensure it takes a common sense approach and effectively encourages providers of synthetic nucleic acid sequences to implement comprehensive, scalable, and verifiable synthetic nucleic acid procurement screening mechanisms to minimize the risk of misuse. Now, let's start with what that means, because that doesn't sound like English to a lot of people. Nucleic acids are DNA, RNA, right? What they're talking about with synthetic nucleic acids are the DNA, RNA tech, mRNA, saRNA, mod RNA, there's some different DNA techs out there. These are all synthetic nucleic acid tech. You got to understand the nomenclature here. That's what they're referring to. And I'm going to show you that I'm right about that in a minute. But this is 100% about that. So when he talks about this order is requiring them to put together something to ensure that all the future mRNA, DNA tech that they're putting out there is, I guess, safe. I mean, it's not requiring any real testing of the DNA or RNA tech in humans or to see how it works. It's requiring that it's manufactured properly, I guess, right? That we're getting what we're asking for. This is phenomenal because this is the president saying we're all in on RNA DNA tech. Now, I'm going to go on with the rest of this, and then I'm because I want you to get your thoughts on it, Mark. The heads of all agencies that fund life science research shall ensure that synthetic nucleic acid procurement, right? This is about procurement. He's not banning it. He's not regulating. He's talking about procurement. Is conducted through providers and manufacturers that adhere to updated framework, right? So Trump is not asking Bobby to regulate mRNA or DNA tech. In fact, quite the opposite. He's just making sure that any federal funding is buying from people who manufacture it properly. That's what this is doing. Now, in doing so, Trump is sanctioning the manufacturing of this. He's saying that we, the federal government, will actually buy this. He's not saying don't build it. He's saying that when you build it, we'll buy it if you build it this way. This is the actual sanctioning and embrace of this experimental gene therapy tech that has still not undergone proper testing or long-term study of any type at all, and has resulted in COVID vaccines causing turbo cancers and everything else. Mark, what do you got? I mean, just tell me what you think, because this is, to me, mind-blowing.
Well, you said it right. The nucleic acids are the letters that make up the genetic alphabet. And the thing that we need to understand, Tom, and all the listeners, is that every human being is a little bit different. And we think we know what those, 23 chromosomes full of DNA from mom and dad do, but we don't.
No.
That whole science is very much in its infancy stage. I've been studying genetics for probably 15 years, quite frankly. And the more I know, the more I realize I don't know. And I'm probably like everybody else. We just don't know what it all does. Remember, not too long ago, we thought some of the nucleic acid sequences were junk DNA. We call them junk because we didn't know what they were doing,
Yeah.
And so to be able to look at this with that kind of scope, to say we're going to regulate, come up with a manual or something on how you're supposed to do that, which is unbeknownst to us what that's going to be, right? What's going to be acceptable. And then we're going to fund it. Now, if you do that, you are assuming you know what it does. And you're also assuming you know what it does in every single person. But I'm here to tell you, and I think you'll agree with me, whatever you do with one person might not apply to the other person, even if it's the exact same thing. Even identical twins, it might not respond the same, because you have this unique environmental genetic reaction with every person, Tom. And I think it's dangerous. I think it's so dangerous, in fact, that I think going forward with this, to put it into use in mankind, I'm not there, man, at all at this point, because of what all you've said and more.
Well, so let me throw this one out at you, Mark. So as a healthcare practitioner, as a scientist that does this stuff, we're told that mRNA can't integrate with your DNA, which it can if there's reverse transcription, which can occur in certain cases. This is mainstream documented consensus science. It can. But even if we accept that, even if we say mRNA can't, mod RNA and certainly DNA can. So what we're talking about with this, and by broadening this synthetic nucleic acid literally is the foundation of transhumanism. It literally has the ability to transform humanity on a profound scale into something that it is not. Now, we don't understand what that means. We don't understand the ramifications. All we know is that one wrong modified DNA sequence could literally create a new breed of humans in God knows what way. Am I wrong about any of that?
You're not. And people need to know that there is reverse transcriptase. That does happen. Do we know every single time it does or doesn't happen? No. But as long as we know there's reverse transcriptase, where the mRNA can reverse backwards and alter the expression of your DNA at the nucleic or the nucleus level, we know that if that happens, we better know how it all happens before we ever do it. And these are like normal I'm always big on the concept. I'll reframe the term, the heaven's advocate person in the room, not the devil's advocate, because you need that type of person to say, well, what about this? Or what about that? Before you do things like this, because you're going to have these massive unintended consequences. And that's what this is full of right now. Massive unintended consequences. And you're right. It's going to, and I'm telling you right now, they're going to go down the sequence line. They're going to say, well, maybe we can fix Down syndrome and use CRISPR technology to insert that in there. That's going to happen. And it probably already has happened in black market, circles there. And so what does that do? No one knows. But I look at it like you probably do. God's hand created each of us. And he's the one that wound those nucleic acids together and those chromosomes inside of our nucleus before we were ever born. It was created. So life began in God before it was manifested on earth. And anytime you do that, you're messing with the concept of creation. And that to me gives me great pause to say not wisdom at all.
Yeah, no, this is a disaster on a massive, massive scale because, if this was to say, okay, we're going to do all testing proper, we're looking at 20 years down the road. Okay, fair enough. But this is a rush job.
Yep.
Now I'm going to say this in fairness to the president, because we have to recognize this. There are trillions of dollars with a T that have been invested in nucleic acid tech around the world. The transhumanist agenda is alive and well. It's running around the world and it's happening. It's not just happening, but it's happening quickly and it's being embraced. So understand that much like AI, the president's in an arms race. And, from his perspective, there is a legitimate argument to be made that if we don't control this, if we don't get there first, someone else will, and better to have our hands on it than to, let China run it, right? Now, I can't argue with that logic too much, but there are far better ways of doing this, and this is where the regulation comes up. Now, for anybody that wants to question, and I'm going to get into the regulation and where that's going, but I know, Mark, I know you got a limited time with us, so I want to show you one more thing before you jump off, because this is a pretty profound thing. This little gem here is the framework for nucleic acid synthesis screening, right? That is what, let me show you on screen here. So president here, framework for nucleic acid screening. That is what this is, okay? This was created by Joe Biden's crew and is a debacle, as was anything that Joe Biden did. And you'll notice that, that this came out in September, right before he left office, right? This was another attempt to try and enshrine gene therapy stuff. So this particular thing, you go down here, I want to scroll down a little bit, and we're going to go through this in some detail here. But we'll go down, and I want to start out just before you leave. This framework applies to federally funded life sciences research involving procurement of all types of synthetic nucleic acids, including but not limited to DNA and RNA, whether single or double-stranded, as well as whole organism genomes, viruses and bacteria. So this is admitting that we're now creating artificial life. This is the gain of function, right? This is where they're talking about buying artificially created life at the viral and bacterial level, containing any synthetic SOC. So this is right here, and what Trump was doing is an absolute, inarguable admission that we are embracing chimeric life, we're embracing DNA, RNA tech, gene therapy drugs, and moving forward. Mark, just in terms of the language, and I'll let you go after this, but did I make any mistakes in my interpretation from a scientist's perspective?
You didn't. And you were talking about, him basically authorizing and okaying the government to procure or secure or buy or purchase with government funds, A, B, C, D, E, and you laid it out there. And I think another way to look at this, folks, this is your taxpayer money going to this too, by the way. So think about that, right? For just one moment. Yep. This is our taxes going to do this. And again, I'm totally against that. But no, you're right, Tom. This is what they deem to be the future. And I echo your thoughts on the quote unquote argument. But the bottom line is there a win to being first in this? And I don't know the answer to that because I don't know what first is. First might be last. You might create such a negative thing and kill a bunch of people. That's not first, that's last.
Yep.
So I think we need to understand what we're getting into a little bit more. And I'm a big believer in push the pause button, push the caution button, and go through this with great, great wisdom and care because it is out there. We can't ignore it, but we don't need to progress, headlong, reckless abandon into it at all.
100%. Mark, I appreciate you being with us. Everybody, I want to remind you, please consider supporting us at TomRenz.com. Go to our affiliate page. You can see it right here. Scroll down there. Scroll down, go to Kingdom Fuel, and make sure you're checking on the blue box where you get an appointment with Mark and his wife. They are some of the best doctors out there for a lot of different things. They do the natural and the allopathic all in the same spot. They don't rule out anything, and that is literally the best approach to being healthy. You keep you healthy, but if you got something, they don't rule out anything to cure it, although they're a little skeptical of some of the big pharma nonsense, I would say. So, Mark, I appreciate you joining us.
I appreciate you too, Tom. Keep up the amazing work, and I'm honored to know you, man.
Thank you, sir, and we'll talk soon. Okay, I want to get back to this, folks. So this document here, that Trump asked us to kind of go through again and do it over, because that is what he asked for. He says we want to go through and we want to revise or replace the framework for nucleic acids and the screening. Now, this is about procurement from the government. Now, Donald Trump could have said to Bobby Kennedy, hey, this stuff here, this is something, right? We I'm not sure it's safe. Let's put regulations in place. Let's create some rulemaking that recognizes that these gene therapies are a special category of drug, which they are, and that we have to have, the total safety testing, 100%, safety testing, all these different things before they're out there. Let's pause with the COVID vaccines. They're clearly a debacle. There's people dying all over from them. Let's pause them and let's do the proper short and long-term testing for vaccines, for gene therapy drugs before we do anything else. Let's make sure that we have the long-term, the short-term tests. We've got everything in place and that we do this the right way. That is not what this order did. This order said, let's talk about how much we're going to buy as government. Now, when you look at this, the way this manifests, this is the deep state at work, okay? This is, to me, one of the clearest illustrations of the problems we had in the first term and how we got to COVID, right? So in COVID, you've got crooked Anthony Fauci and you got Scarf Lady Deborah Birx. Do you remember Scarf Lady? She came out and admitted in her book that her job was to lie to the president every day. Now, this, for everybody that thinks Trump's got everything under control and there's a plan and he's got no one around him but good guys, how much more clear of an example can you get? Someone has told the president and convinced him, Mr. President, your mRNA stuff was great. It's the future. It's the future. We can cure cancer with it. We can do this with it. We can do that with it. To quote Elon Musk, you can turn a person into a butterfly. And Musk isn't wrong. He's not wrong. What we can do with gene therapy is monumental. Literally, just about anything out there could be cured, fixed, altered, whatever, right? The potential for gene therapy is monumental, but it may come at the expense of not being human anymore. And if you do one wrong thing, you can have what we have with COVID, which is lifelong issues with autoimmune or these different things. You can also run across, the turbo cancers. All these different things can happen if you do one thing even a little bit off on this. Instead of slowing things down and saying, let's properly test this, let's make sure that no one in this country is getting that crap or using that crap until we know it's safe. And we're going to require proper testing and safety protocols and maybe even something crazy like informed consent, God forbid. I mean, God knows we wouldn't want informed consent in this country. Instead, we're rushing headlong into this. How is this MAHA? Now, if you think that Bobby can do anything about this, I've got a bridge for you. Bobby's doing everything he can on this. I don't put this at Bobby's feet. Listen, Bobby there is no way on this planet that they would allow Bobby to remove mRNA from the market. They will not do it. He does not have that authority. I don't care if he's HHS or not. If Bobby tried to remove mRNA from the market, he would lose his job tomorrow. And then he can't do anything good, right? So, let's be realistic about what's happening here. Someone this is from the top down. Someone's convinced the president this is the way you've got to go. And you can see that because it's part of an executive order that the president signed, not Bobby. Now, yes, Bobby's got to do his job and say, yay, Mr. President. But if you think that this is okay with anybody, and Bobby knows better on this. So I don't put this at Bobby's feet. I put this squarely at whoever's lying to the president. And that's what they're doing. They're manipulating and lying to the president. This is not proper in any way, shape, or form. And frankly, if America had the courage to talk about what happened with the COVID vaccines, you can be assured that that would have a global impact on this kind of work. It would be slowed down. We could probably create a global international treaty to stop this sort of stuff if we would do it. But instead, we're covering it up. Now, this also tells me that in terms of justice for COVID, forget it, folks. It ain't coming under this administration. Pfizer Pam ain't going to do it. Bondi, who worked for Pfizer right before she got the AG job, is not going after any sort of accountability. And if you think that this administration is going to allow it, look no further than Brooke Jackson's case. Look elsewhere. They are not. This order is embracing mRNA tech. They are not going back. They are not going to look at it. They are not going to reevaluate it. The only thing we can hope for at this point from this administration is that they maybe start requiring some proper safety testing and regulatory oversight. But that's not looking real promising in light of this executive order. Now, I saw out there today, let's see if I got this. Do I have this in front of me? No, I don't. But Epoch Times had an article today. And in it, they were talking about, they're talking to Harmeet Dillon, who said that the number one thing that they could do in Congress is repeal Jacobson v. Massachusetts, right? Make that a law, that you have the right to refuse vaccines or any other medical intervention. I would argue that should be found under the Constitution, but, who am I? Regardless, there is one other thing that Harmeet did not know because this is not her area. And that is the fact that we also need to start requiring informed consent in this country. Do y'all know that we don't have informed consent in this country? So there's a lot of common law around informed consent, and you can argue this, but it's a very gray area of the law. There is informed consent required for experiments and experimenting on people. But once a drug is approved, that's kind of not there anymore, right? The informed consent rules in this country do you know that there is no law explicitly requiring informed consent for every pharmaceutical product out there? And because of that, what's happened is we've got this regulatory mess that's facilitated a situation where informed consent doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. The FDA, CDC, HHS colludes with Big Pharma to make sure that they don't have to tell you what's actually happening. They do it in a lot of different ways. For example, with the COVID vaccines, they knew about the myocarditis, they knew about the thrombocytopenia, they knew about the strokes, the death, they knew about all of this, the risk for cancer, way before these vaccines were released. They knew about it. They even listed it in a VRBPAC meeting that they had right before the COVID vaccines were given emergency authorization. They knew this, but they didn't disclose it to the public, and they won't disclose it to the public, and they didn't have to. Instead, what they did was they said all those things that could kill you from these COVID vaccines, those are adverse events of special interest. They aren't side effects, so you don't have to disclose those to people. And so they were able to cover it up. That's why you didn't hear about it. That's why there were pages and pages of adverse events of special interest in the Pfizer documents, but none of them were called side effects. Now, in common parlance, let me ask you a question. If there is a good faith basis to believe that if I give you a shot, it's going to cause you to have myocarditis, Would you consider that to be a side effect? I would. Any normal person would view that as a side effect. This is just basic understanding of common language. But it wasn't disclosed. Why? Well, because they didn't have to. They didn't have to. So the law, as it stands, allows them to lie, and they do not give informed consent. They can have expected things that can occur, and they don't tell you in this country. And they don't have to, and they're not going to. That's not changing. In fact, in a number of states, we've tried to include language in various bills requiring informed consent. Do you know that those bills get shut down consistently? Do you know that we cannot pass an informed consent law in any state? Not one. I would love to. And by the way, if anybody listening is an elected official and would like help on this, I'm happy to help you. But do you know that we do not have informed consent in this country? We don't. It's just that simple. This is a huge deal because it allows, so we have drug manufacturers, drug vaccine, big pharma is pretty much the only industry in this country that can commit fraud and mislead consumers and not get in trouble for it. The FTC went after all sorts of natural and alternative remedy people during COVID. My friend Eric Naputi got sued by the FTC for $500 billion with a B for talking about vitamin D and zinc during COVID, which worked great at helping you with COVID. You get COVID, take vitamin D and zinc. By all means, I would say definitely. But he got sued by the FTC because apparently they didn't think there was adequate evidence of something that there's tons of science on. Because FTC is crooked as hell under Biden. But meanwhile, you've got pharma who's putting a drug out that's causing heart attacks, killing kids, causing all sorts of problems, that's now led to an explosion of turbo cancer and everything else, and no one gives a damn. And if you think Trump's doing anything about it, I got news for you. He just, his order just enshrined this. Now, I think Trump is doing this intentionally. No, I think he's trying to do what's best for this country. But he's being lied to. Obviously. Quite clearly. This isn't the way you do this. But his experts, the people around him, fall into two categories. People that don't have the courage to tell him the truth because they're yes men, and people that are pushing him with false information and lies. That's it. The president apparently doesn't want to hear any more about this. He's been back and forth on this so much, he just is done. But I got to tell you, I don't care. We voted for Trump in part because he said he was embracing MAHA. Is this MAHA? Is pushing DNA, RNA tech? Let me remind you of this, folks. Here, let me bring this back up and remind you, just in case you need to see it again. Let's go down. Where's this at? Right here. When we talk about this, framework includes even single or double-stranded as well as whole organism genomes. We're going to be creating artificial viruses and bacteria and allowing them to sell it. What could go wrong, right? What could go wrong? We're literally okay with chimeric viruses and bacteria. Think about this, folks. This is insanity. Somehow you're going to argue that this is national security? It's national security, all right. It's a national security risk. We're creating a bioweapons program and enshrining it under law, allowing us to call it dual-use research, right? Folks, I got to be honest with you. I cannot stand aside and say this is okay. Again, I love what Trump's doing on the border. Love it. I think it's amazing. His trade deals are incredible. The man's a good man. He fought hard. He stood strong. I mean, the guy got shot in the run-up to the election. Think about that. Over and over and over again, Donald Trump has proven to be a warrior. But in this one issue, he is disastrous. He is either blinded or whatever. But on this issue, he's got it dead wrong. And no one seems to have the balls or the integrity to tell him the truth. And I don't know what it is. I don't know why it is. But I know one thing. This is a disaster. Now, when they revise this, when they revise the book, right, when they revise the framework on nucleic acid synthesis and screening, Trump has said that he wants to ensure that, that the procurement process, all these things, meet certain standards. So we've got a shot here. If Trump will allow them to create a proper regulation that limits and requires that, what they're selling is safe, or, somehow not a deadly debacle, which it does talk about in here, right? He talks about that. And he also, to his credit, does talk about, and let me bring this up. This is from the executive order, right? Let's talk about this. Well, 180 days order, directors shall, and all these other people, shall develop and implement a strategy to govern, limit, and track dangerous gain-of-function research across the U.S. that occurs without federal funding and other life science research, right? So he's asking for safety in it. Now, he's not stopping it. He's not asking for a regulation to stop gain-of-function. In fact, he explicitly is saying he wants to regulate how it's done. He could regulate it out of existence, but he doesn't want to do that. He's okay with private companies doing this so long as they do it in a air quotes safe way. Only air quotes safe way to do it is not to do it. You create a virus that's a pathogen, it gets out, it's dangerous. There is no safe way to do this. It's absurd. It's an oxymoron. But you could, as I said earlier in the show, we could do Sims, we could do AI, that sort of thing. Since we're all in on the AI anyways, which I don't really love, but we are. We could do it that way, but we're not doing it that way. Right? Instead, we're going to regulate how it's done, right? And then we're going to make it more transparent, right? We're going to have a reporting mechanism. That'll help. Yippee! Now we can see what's coming to kill us. Great. I don't know, folks. I don't know what to say about this. Meanwhile, this all happens, right? So, and I want to point this out because there's some interesting things happening timing wise. So all this is happening. We've got this executive order, which is the worst executive order President Trump has ever written, in my opinion. It leaves way too much to risk. And unless the agencies are going to do what shut this stuff down, which we know they aren't, it's just an absolute debacle. So you've got all that sort of stuff happening. You also have, at the same time, this happens, and I go out and I talk to Alex Jones, I talk to Maria Z, I start doing some press on this. I put it out myself. 5 minutes later, Trump pulls the Surgeon General and nominates Callie Means. Now, let's talk about that, right? MAHA is up in arms on this because Callie Means has not been outspoken in any way, shape, or form against the COVID vaccines. She very much has not. Apparently, she doesn't have a medical license that's active. I don't know. I don't really care. And I'm not here to judge Callie Means because I don't know her. I know some of the stuff she said I like. I would love to see her more outspoken on the vaccines, but she has talked about vaccines and autism. So I'm going to be real honest. My position on Callie Means is I don't know. We'll see. But the timing on this nomination was critical. This happened right after this executive order, which was about to blow up in his face, and it should. And then every freaking little butt kisser out there on social media comes out and we're banning gain of function. And then I say, no, we're not. And then I provide the evidence. And then instead of everybody saying, oh yeah, oops, then we move on. Hey, no, don't worry about that though, because we're going to nominate Callie Means. We're going to withdraw the Surgeon General person who was always going to be a debacle. And we're going to go with Callie Means, who is much more amenable to MAHA, but not perfect, right? Has not spoken out on certain things that we would like her to say more on. We'll see where Casey Means. I'm sorry. I keep saying Callie. Let's see where that goes. Okay. I hope Casey does a great job. Don't know this guy. I don't know why I keep saying Callie. But Casey, I mean, I don't know this person. Hope it, great job. I really do. But we'll see where that goes. But it's a distraction from the real issue, right? First of all, is Casey going to be outspoken on the vaccines now? Well, it hasn't been ever to this point. So why would I think they're going to do that? Be a warrior on this now? So we keep putting in people who are kind of lukewarm on the mRNA and that sort of stuff, or gene therapy and these sorts of things. And then at the same time, we're pushing this executive order. This looks like a distraction to me, folks. Trump literally just said, let's go ahead with gain of function, and let's go ahead with mRNA and DNA and chimeric and all gene therapy, all this genetic engineering. And then, does this, I think the Surgeon General thing is a distraction. I don't think it's not meaningful to me. I mean, we'll see what Casey does. I hope Casey does an incredible work. I really do. And I don't know Casey. So I'm praying for Dr. Means to do a great job. Certainly better than the last person. I can't remember her name, whoever they got rid of. But is that a win or not? Now, I will tell you that in terms of Casey, Laura Loomer's got some real interesting things on Casey. And I mean, if it's accurate, it's a little bit disturbing, right? But it probably is. Laura's pretty accurate about things. I mean, she's very, very bombastic and very aggressive, but she's also pretty damn accurate. So it probably is. And I think it's interesting. But I think more importantly than this is I view it as disingenuous. I view it as just a distraction, because the foundational issue, and no one wanted to talk about it, was they lied to us, and they lied at the press conference. They lied. This is going to eliminate dangerous gain of function work. And I say dangerous because they want to mislead the public. It's going to end dangerous gain of function work, right? He's allowing it to go on, but he's going to get rid of, doing it in countries of concern like China. Well, all gain of function work is dangerous. The idea that you can somehow do it safely is absurd. It's not safe. The only way to safely do it is to simulate it. So I'm going to be advocating. I think we need to let Bobby know, make sure that, that regulation only allows for simulated gain of function work. Go ahead. Trump wants it. Let him do it. Make it simulated. He can use his super advanced AI that he loves. But let's not create the actual pathogens, and you don't have to worry about lab leaks, right? I mean, that makes sense to me. And or better, you know what we could do? So let's argue that we need to actually experiment on the pathogens. All right. How about we make no pathogen creation allowed privately? It can only be done in some of the government-funded biolabs that are controlled by the military or by one of the government agencies. That way, it's properly regulated. Can we do that? No, we're actually encouraging private gain of function work. Think about that. But don't worry, we're going to regulate it, folks. Yeah, that worked well, real well. Ask the people of Wuhan and the people of the world who were exposed to COVID. Those labs were regulated then too. How did that work? But don't worry, we're nominating Casey Means for Surgeon General, so we're clearly MAHA, aren't we? It's clearly MAHA. It's sleight of hand, folks. It's sleight of hand. It's all nonsense. Yeah, I mean, and here's the real kicker. The story is, and I don't know this for sure. I haven't talked to her. But the story is that Dr. Kelly Victory was going to get appointed. Was supposed to be. That was Bobby's pick for Surgeon General. Now that would have been perfect. I know Kelly. Kelly's a warrior. She's honest. She's been accurate on the mRNA. But she's outspoken against mRNA. Casey Means is not. The story is, the rumor is, and I haven't talked to Kelly, and I haven't talked to Bobby, I haven't talked to any of these people. But the story is that Kelly was supposed to get that nomination, and then the president just ignored it and decided to do Casey Means. I wonder why. Tell me that doesn't lend credibility to my theory that we're pushing this mRNA, DNA, chimeric, viruses and bacteria tech. Tell me that doesn't lend credibility. I'm very concerned about this. The president has been convinced that this is a thing that's necessary for economic development, national security. He's been convinced that this is the way we got to go. And apparently, as I continue to say, everyone around him is either too busy kissing his rear to tell him the truth or just a sellout. And it's probably a little bit of both. Now, like I said, if the story's true, Bobby pushing for Kelly victory, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Bobby doing that, but it also points to the fact that Bobby's on a very short leash. Yes, he's the head of HHS, but he clearly is limited in what he can do. Very. We're not seeing, I haven't seen one thing, not one thing, in terms of talking about the dangers that have come out from these COVID vaccines. Not one thing. Not one thing talking about the dangers of mRNA. You think Bobby's unaware? Of course Bobby's aware. Someone's telling him you're not allowed to touch that is what's happening here. We need to know who in this administration is pulling these strings, right? Because Trump is a leader. He's always been a great leader. And he puts, people in positions. But he put Bill Barr in a position last term. And it wouldn't be the first time he's made Anthony Fauci. He had a bunch of advisors that were terrible in the last term. Has he done it is he done better this time? I don't know. This gives me pause. It gives me concern. I'm very concerned about what this is saying, where this is going, folks. Very, very concerned. And again, I want you to understand, none of this is soundbite. Doesn't mean I don't love Trump. There's a lot of nuance to this. And it could be that these regulations come out the right way. I don't think they're gonna. Every indication is that these regulations are going to come out pro-pharma, pro-gene therapy, pro-poison, pro-everything, and that Trump is going to just allow this to move forward unabated. Everything that we're seeing indicates that Trump is okay with what's happening and where this is going. This is not okay. Nothing we're doing is okay. This is an absolute disaster. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen. And frankly, I'm terrified about the direction we're going. Particularly, we're going to allow, folks. I mean, honestly, we're going to allow chimeric bacteria and viruses to be created. Are you serious? Do you know how dangerous that is? By the way, that can be a delivery system for all sorts of things. These artificial man-made virus type things, that can be a delivery system for all sorts of, let's say, call them vaccines, but really gene therapy drugs with other things. Man-made bacteria, I don't even know how to describe how dangerous this is. This is like apocalyptic world ending. So anyways, that's the story. Like I said, this isn't short. It's not simple. There's a lot happening here. Lots of other stuff in the news, but unfortunately, this deserved a full show. This deserved a full thing. We got to fight this, folks. We got to fight it the right way. Got to support the president on the good stuff, but we got to help him wake up on this because this is not good. Thank you all for listening.